Hi everyone, welcome to CSC 404. My name is Karthik and I'll be your TA for the semester. Today, I'll guide you through a series of tutorials to help you get started with Unity, which is what you'll be using throughout the semester to build your games. So today we'll build a sample game and I'll take you through the basics all the way from creating your project to writing scripts and testing your game. So once you have Unity installed, the first thing you want to do when you create a new game is you want to build a new project. So you can click the new tab here in order to create a new game. And you have a couple of options. So for instance, you might want to create a 2D game or a 3D game. Today we'll be working with a 3D game, and I'm just going to call it sample game. And I'm going to click create, which will in a few moments present us with the new project. So upon creating the project, you'll be greeted with this window, which contains all the important aspects of the Unity workflow. And I'm going to take you through each of them step by step. So the first one to be aware of is the scene window, which you can access through clicking this. And that's the default view that your projects start with. So the scene view is where you'll spend a majority of your time while you're building your game. So it shows you all the different objects that are present in your game for that particular scene. And you can see that currently we have a couple of different icons that are kind of appearing in our scene window. So we have access to two kind of major components. One is a camera and a directional light. And I'll get into the details of these a little later. The second kind of important window is the game window, which is where you'll be spending time when you're actually playing the game or when you're troubleshooting the game. The next important component about the Unity workspace or the workflow is the hierarchy, which contains all the information about the current scene that you're working with. So right now in our sample scene, we have, as I mentioned, two objects, the main camera and a directional light. So as you kind of build your scene out and your game out, you'll have much more objects or many more objects in this kind of hierarchy. And this is how you'll be building your game up in a particular scene. The next thing to be aware of is the project kind of tab. And so this tab contains all the different assets that you're using while you build your game. By default, when you create a new scene, you have already this scene that's under this folder called scenes. But as you create new game objects or prefabs or scripts or even things like textures and materials, you can populate this assets or this project folder. The next thing to be aware of is the console, which you'll be interacting with when you're actually playing the game. So for instance, let's say that you're writing some sort of scripts for your game, for one of your game objects. The console helps you with troubleshooting. So for instance, you might want to check if let's say you have a behavior that you've written in your script and you want to make sure it works. The console allows you to print things to the console. You can also see errors that are part of your scripts or some sort of issues or warnings that might come up in the console. The last kind of important aspect of this workspace or the workflow is what's called the inspector. So whenever you click one of your game objects in the hierarchy window, you'll be greeted with this inspector view, which gives you information about your game object. So for instance, right now I'm looking at the main camera, and then you see a couple of components that describe the game object. So for instance, there's what is known as a transform, which I'll kind of briefly outline a little bit later. And then some other specific attributes. For instance, for the camera, there is information like what is the field of view of this camera and some other components.